they interrupted the communication system and blasted ABBA music. This is something that a fellow passenger of mine who's Palestinian pointed out Israel does quite a lot, actually, when they attack neighborhoods in Palestine. If they attack someone on their birthday, they may blast happy birthday music. So that's an example of psychological warfare that may precede physical warfare. The other thing that we anticipate is that Israel will try to shut down communications. This is clearly a way that gives them more freedom to act as they would. You know, what we've seen again in Palestine and in Gaza is the systematic targeting and killing of journalists. That is one way that Israel can create a blanket of darkness over its actions. And so with the flotilla as well, they use technology to disrupt communication systems. We've seen the live streams flickering on and off. We've seen people losing internet connection. This is also going to come from the flotilla's end because actually people will at some point dispose of their digital devices as well, and therefore they will be unable to communicate independently. The reason for that is to protect the data, the shared data of everybody, all of their contacts that are in, shared signal groups. So loss of communication, that's the next stage. And then there is the interception itself. This can take the form of a light interception, whereby commandos may not actually board the boats. They may simply try to reroute them and escort them away from Gaza and towards Israel's ports, where people can be detained and deported. But there is also the risk of a violent interception, and as I've described already, the assessment is that a violent interception is definitely possible and more likely for the global Silver Flotilla than for the previous Handler or Madeleine ships.
Why is that? Why it could be more violent than any other flotillas, especially with what we have witnessed with Madeleine and Hanzala? Why smooth flotilla would be the most highest risk?
It's a good question. The first answer would simply be size. This is the biggest humanitarian civilian operation in history trying to get to Gaza. That means that just statistically the likelihood of an incident or a cause of escalation is higher. It's a lot for Israel to manage. However, there is also the reality that compared to the Madeleine, compared to the Handler, this is a more global operation. I think half the participants come from the global south. There are many vessels with Turkish flags. If we look at the history of these humanitarian missions, and we look at the occasions in which violence has been executed by Israel against participants, those have almost always been Turkish participants. And so, given how Israel treats people from certain ethnicities, compared to how they treat people from other ethnicities, the global Silver Flotilla, with a higher representation of Global South and Arab and Muslim participants, is also deemed to be a greater risk. And thirdly, there is what
very important to mention, Matilda, sorry to interrupt, but because according to what we have received so far from the organizers, we are talking about more than 350 participants from the US and Europe. In part of total of 530 confirmed to be participated on the flotilla. How this could affect things within the interception and the high risk of a very specific treatment targeted a specific ethnicity.
So this, you're so right to point that out, Khalid. There's a really strong cohort of European and American participants. And the Global Flotilla, something that is really ambitious in the way that they have executed this, is that they have tried to make sure every boat has a mix of nationalities, a representative mix of people from different continents, different languages, different religions. Just, people watching, just imagine, I think, logistically, what that means. You probably have seen in the coverage of this flotilla over the past weeks that there's been a lot of logistical difficulties. Well, every boat, it doesn't share a single language, it doesn't share a single culture. Everyone has had to build mechanisms to communicate, not just about nautical plans, but about security drills, about chores, who's going to do the cooking and the cleaning. So that has been something that the flotilla has been determined to do from the start, to make sure every boat has a representative mix of people from different nationalities. And it's also being really in consideration for today, for interception, and the way that everyone positions themselves on deck as they are approached by Israel's Navy fleet. They are trying to make sure that, nationalities are interspersed in the way that they're sitting, so that an Israeli commando doesn't board the boat and immediately see a group of Muslim Arab men in front of them, because that is being calculated as a risk of escalation. So
One of the videos that I've seen so far this morning, which was very shocking to me, that people were taking off the Holy Quran from their boats and throwing it to the sea just in case of the interception. How do you explain that?
So Israel has now, for the past few weeks, really been pushing the narrative that this global summer flotilla is backed by, funded by, organised by Hamas. This has also been widely printed in Israeli news media. It hasn't been widely printed in our news media, but it has been printed in some media. I saw LBC included, I saw the Telegraph mention it, although the Telegraph does at least caveat saying that Israel is claiming this with no evidence, right? Israel is claiming this is the terrorist operation, but the evidence that they claim to show is not evidence. It doesn't in any way demonstrate that this is a military operation. That would be very hard to prove because it's not the case. And so, something like a Quran on board may be manipulated, may be used, I think this is the fear, retrospectively by Israel to try and paint the flotilla as an Islamist operation. Obviously, once these vessels are cleared by Israel, Israel has the freedom to take photographs, maybe to plant their own items in the flotilla, and to tell the narrative without those on board really having the opportunity to respond. And so every precaution that can be taken to make sure the flotilla cannot be represented as something that it isn't has been taken, because that could be used as justification for violence. That is a question of the safety of everybody on board.
And I can see all the audience right now asking for more updates of what's currently happening. So far, that we understand from the organizers, no boat has been intercepted yet. Everything is happening right now is about more than 20 military vessels surrounding the boats and the flotilla. It jammed all the connection. I've been trying to catch up with our reporter on Alma on board. No luck so far. The last thing I've received from her, the Israeli message to Alma to stop sailing in the area. Once we receive any other updates, we will definitely keep you posted. But yeah, you can carry on, Matilda. Sorry, just I wanted to update our audience of what's happening now.
No, that's okay. I'm just also just trying to message everybody who is on the different boats. I just had a message from Awela saying we're going to be the next to be boarded, which is indicating that they're not the first to be boarded. However, it's never to know. That's Awela. Awela is.
Awela? Matilda?